بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وعلى من تبع هداهم إلى يوم الدين. Indeed, all praise is due to Allah. We praise Him, seek His aid and ask His forgiveness. We seek refuge in Allah from the evils of ourselves and from the evils of our actions. Whomsoever Allah guides, none can misguide. And whomsoever Allah misguides, none can guide. I bear witness that there is none worthy of worship except for Allah, alone having no partner, and I bear witness that Muhammad is a slave and His messenger. Say something?
Yes,
أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله. The best of talks beyond any doubt is the book of Allah وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. And very the most evil of all matters are the ones innovated, for every newly innovated matter is an innovation, and every innovation is a misguidance, and every misguidance will lead to the hellfire. Before we start, it's a reminder for myself and for the brothers, a reminder that we always need to remind ourselves after finishing a beautiful month, that is the month of Ramadan. And we know for a fact that the Prophet ﷺ used to be on his ibadah in the entire year. He used to fast in the entire year, and he used to make qiyam in the entire year, and he used to make as well zakah and pay sadaqah in the entire year. But he used to be striving more in the month of Ramadan. So his charity would be more in Ramadan. His qiyam would be more in Ramadan. His siyam, of course, the whole of the month of Ramadan. So his ibadah, it will be more in the month of Ramadan. And that is why as well, Jibreel alayhi salam reminds us of the Quran with the Prophet of Allah in the month of Ramadan. So, as we could see here, that is a natural pattern for a human being, that he will be naturally in those months, in this month, which is the month where the shaitan is locked up, that he will be closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there is no way to expect from someone to be on top of his form like he was in the month of Ramadan. That's impossible. No way. I mean, you cannot keep it up, because in the month of Ramadan, as I said, it's a designated month. But it's a month to give us like a kick, meaning that this month is like a training session. So after this month, you're expected to do as close as possible to that ibadah, not as the ibadah that you've done in the month of Ramadan. And that is why we tell those brothers who have been made a promise to themselves, as soon as the month of Ramadan is finished, I'm going to go back to my habit. And we will tell them what Ubay ibn Ka'b said. That he said, verily, that the person who talks to himself in the month of Ramadan, and as soon as he finishes, he will keep up with his ibadah, and his ibadah has been accepted. But if he kept telling himself, as soon as Ramadan is finished, I'm going to go back to my sins and my old habits, then this is a sign of evil, a sign of that your ibadah has not been accepted. So the ibadah is a sign for it to be accepted, is the ibadah follows another ibadah. That's one of the signs, I'm not saying the sign, but one of the signs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted your ibadah. And Bishr al-Hafi, he said, when he been told that some people are worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the month of Ramadan, and when the month of Ramadan is finished, they don't know any rights to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, woe to those people. They're worshipping Allah in Ramadan, and then after Ramadan, they don't fulfill their due rights to Allah Azza wa Jalla. Bi'sa al-qawm, woe to them. What a losers they are. So, I make sure that I will, for example, number one, fast the 6 days of Shawwal. That is a ibadah, which is a sign. If it's a sign, then I make sure that I'll fast it to make sure that my ibadah is accepted. For the 6 days of Shawwal, those are the days that the Prophet of Allah, he said, he who fasts the month of Ramadan, follows it up with 6 days of Shawwal, is like he fasted the entire year. So the month of Ramadan, it turns into 10 months, as in each deed will receive as little as 10 multiplied. Then it could be more than that. So 10 multiplied by month of Ramadan, that's 10 months. And followed up by 6 days, multiplied by 6, that's 60 days. That's 2 months. 2 months plus 10 months is 12 months, which is the entire year. Now you understand why it is equivalent to fasting the entire year in terms of rewards. But of course, you're not allowed to fast the entire year and to fast the 8 days. Fasting, that means fasting all the permissible days. So all the permissible days, if you fast them, okay, you're going to get a reward, but still, it is not from the Sunnah of the Prophet. La salam. He's not a fasting person who had fasted the entire year.
You're not supposed to do that because then you're going to give rights to other people. But if you want to get the entire reward of that fasting in the entire year, then fast Ramadan, followed up with 60 days of Shawwal. So it is different case from, for example, reciting the Quran. Reciting, for example, Surah Qul Huwallahu Ahad 3 times is equivalent in reward like reciting the whole of the Quran. But when a person recites the whole of the Quran, definitely it's got better reward than fasting the Qul Huwallahu Ahad 3 times. Whereas that now, the fasting of Ramadan, that is followed up by 6 days of Shawwal, you're getting the reward of the fasting of the entire year, but it is not from the Sunnah to fast the entire year like it is from more recommended to read the whole of the Quran. Now, when you fast the 6 days of Shawwal, make sure that you start with the obligatory. It's been narrated from Abu Bakr, which is authentic as well, that Allah will not accept your voluntary if you don't do your obligatory. And that is something that we have learned from Abu Bakr. Even if Abu Bakr, Allah didn't say it, it's a principle. How can you start with the Sunnah and the Nafilah before you start your Fard? So if a person, for example, started his 6 days of Shawwal before he had done his missed days of Ramadan, and then the death comes on to him, the death came to him in the best of images, it is the most ugliest of images. How can he say the best of the ugliest? The best that he's doing, mashallah, 6 days of Shawwal, but then the ugliest that he did not compensate for his obligatory fast. So Allah Azza wa Jalla is questioning you. So you don't have the same thing as the prayer. We know the end of the time of the prayer. So for example, if you delay Dhuhr until the end of Dhuhr, no problem. So if, for example, you delayed it from the beginning of it, and you had death about 2 hours from the beginning of the prayer of Dhuhr, then you have no problem with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asking you what is your done, because you still have what? You still got time, because you know the end of the time. But for compensating Ramadan, you don't know what is the end of the time. You know the beginning, but you don't know the end of compensating the mistakes. You understand that? So the ending of that, and this is points, maybe you're not going to find it in books, write them down, get them from the scholars. That is, the end of Ramadan, there is no end. We could find it like the prayer. So if, for example, a person had missed some days, the general principle is applied, the ayah in the Quran, وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. Hasten to the process of seeking forgiveness from your Lord. That's the principle. So as soon as I finish my Ramadan and I have missed days, I will start compensating those days based upon this principle. But we have something from Abu Bakr to support us, which is authentic. And Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah had said that as well. You find in Musannaf ibn Abi Shaybah and Abu Bakr Allah will not accept your voluntary until you finish what? Your obligatory. So, first of all, make sure that you fast your obligatory. And now don't really use the hadith of Aisha that she used to fast her missed days until the following Sha'ban, which is 10 months later. And you would say, well, definitely Aisha, she used to fast her 6 days of Shawwal. Do you think Aisha, radiallahu anha, she would delay her obligatory fast that much without any reason? A'udhu billah. And when you say that the person, if he had an excuse not to fast those missed days, proper excuse, like illness and whatever, and he had postponed these days, he could still fast his days of Shawwal, 6 days of Shawwal, after the month of Shawwal, and no problem about that. So the 6 days of Shawwal is extended for you according to what your valid excuse is. There's no problem. So if you have, for example, did not fast the whole month of Ramadan, 30 days, because of a very legitimate reason, and then after the month of Ramadan, you're going to start compensating for those days. You're going to take the whole month of Shawwal. 6 days of Shawwal, you do them where? In Dhul Qa'dah. You didn't have time to do them because of illness again. You started your compensation in Dhul Qa'dah. Your 6 days will transfer into Dhul Hijjah, no problem about that. But I have to start with the obligatory. Number 2, in order to get the reward of fasting the entire year, I need to finish Ramadan. Prophet ﷺ, he said, he who fasts Ramadan follows it up with 6 days of Shawwal, then it's like he fasted the entire year. So there's 2 things here. And I cannot start with my voluntary before I do my obligatory. Number 2, if in order to get the reward for the entire year of fasting the entire year, which I can't do, I'm not allowed, it's not for the sunnah to fast the entire year. I'm not saying the entire year including the Eid. No, without including the Eid days. Just to fast the permissible days is not really from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, because you will be at the expense of other rights. So this is the second one, which is to get the entire year reward. I need to finish Ramadan with compensating the days of Ramadan. and then makes the 6 days of Shawwal. Do you understand that? What somebody might ask now. Is it not possible, for example, to combine a voluntary, for example, fast with obligatory fast at the same time and get the same reward? Yes, you will. You get the reward, but you're not going to get the same fasting days. So if, for example, you have given that compensation in the month of Shawwal, you wanted to get the fasting the 6 days of Shawwal, you get the reward of the intention, but you're not going to get the reward of fasting the entire year. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm going to repeat what I said. So if the person had fasted those missed days after the month of Ramadan, in the month of Shawwal, and his intention to throw 2 birds in 1 stone, which is fasting the missed days plus the 6 days of Shawwal, you're not going to get the reward of what? Fasting the entire year. But you will get the reward of your intention. Just like the same thing that today is Monday. And you are fasting what? The 6 days of Shawwal. And you are as well compensating and then missed days of Ramadan. You could do the following. So I'm fasting my missed days of Ramadan with the intention of my doing my Monday, because I do my Monday, plus my doing my 6 days of Shawwal. I get all the intentions. So brother, there's rewards for you. Just like when you come to do the masjid, for example. For myself, if I come to the masjid, let's say, that is in the Asr, I miss my obligation. I come to the Asr, I don't have time for my Tahiyat al-Masjid. I will do my Asr, including what? With the intention of what? My Tahiyat al-Masjid, including what? My Sunnat al-Wudu. All of that, including my mind, and that's it. I get reward. You know, it's easy to get reward as long as you know how to get the reward. So if you know that, you get more rewards. So why don't you just have the intention? It's not saying it with your tongue. No, it's just having it that you are aware of what you're doing. So you're doing your Asr, plus your Tahiyat al-Masjid, plus that. So no problem. So the person, he made a vow, let's say, in the month of Shawwal, to fast. Well, he made a vow. Question today would be question. Question was sent by somebody, and they said that a person vowed to fast Monday and Thursday. Vowed Monday and Thursday for the whole of Shawwal. He's asking, can I include with that vow? The vow is obligatory. My number 1, Monday and Thursday, which is the fasting of Monday and Thursday, the Sunnah, I used to do it. Can I include my 6 days of Shawwal as well? I said, no problem. You can't do that. He said you could make your vow, which is obligatory, follow that with the intention of Monday and Thursday, which is what? Which is voluntary, and also with the 6 days of Shawwal, it's no problem. And it's nothing to do with the month of Ramadan. So if you have fasted the entire month of Ramadan, so including the 6 days of Shawwal, you'll still get the reward of the fasting of the entire year, because you have fasted what? The month of Ramadan. But you cannot combine in one day 2 obligatories. So if you, for example, vowed the fasting of 5 days in the month of Shawwal, and then you want to make up 5 days that you have missed the Ramadan. I cannot say in those 5 days I want to have 2 birds in 1 stone, which is 5 days missed, 8 days from Ramadan, and 5 days, which is what? From the vowed days. You understand that? Just like we say regarding the ghusl. When you are having a ghusl, let's say for Jumu'ah, and you are sexually defined, you have sexual janabah. So you cannot combine the 2 ghusl in one, because both of them are what? Obligatory. But I think if it was the Eid prayer, and it happens to be the Jumu'ah. So I'm doing ghusl now with the intention of 2, which is what? Jumu'ah and Eid. I mean, it's not compulsory, ghusl. But Jumu'ah is what? Compulsory. I have no problem to combine the Eid prayer with the Jumu'ah prayer. But I cannot do the Jumu'ah with the sexual defilement, because both of them are what? Compulsory. Is that understood, everybody? So, if I had sexually defiled on the day of Eid, I could combine with the janabah ghusl my intention for ghusl of what? Of Eid. That's the intention you're rewarded. But if you want to get better reward, you do what? 2 ghusl. Okay? So in the Jumu'ah and the sexual defilement, you must do 2 ghusl. Okay? But if it is Eid prayer plus sexual defilement, you could do the combination of the intention, 1 ghusl, but you have more reward, you have 2 ghusl. Because the ghusl of the Eid is not compulsory. But, and this will be consensus, but the ghusl of the sexual defilement, of course, is compulsory. It's a condition for your prayer to be accepted. Is that understood, everybody, inshallah? Has Faisal come?
He's not coming yet.
He's not coming. You see how far I'm putting the microphone? Because it's giving me a headache already. Okay, let's go. go back, inshallah, to our topic. What time is the prayer? 21. Please can I add as well to your ibadah, it's very important, that is to keep your tongue fresh for the members of Allah. Can you just close the gaps, brother? Close the gaps. Close the gaps. Be like the ones in the front. Close the gaps. Close the gaps. Don't be scattered. Close the gaps. Sitting in the back like this is not really from the student's knowledge. Etiquettes. From the thing that we need as well to bear in mind in the month of Ramadan, which is your tongue is to keep fresh with the elements of it. Just like you're making sure that you brush your teeth, mashallah, fluoride, make sure that it's very nice. Make sure as well to brush your tongue. What with the remembrance of it. That's the toothbrush of it. The remembrance of Allah. And the remembrance of Allah you used to do most of the time in the month of Ramadan is the Quran. And the Quran, if you don't really keep doing it, it will come out of your chest even stronger and more vigorously than the camel coming out of its tether, its rope. It just pulls out. And that's what you should do. You should all the time keep the Quran is with you all the time. So don't really read it. I'm not saying you have to recite it every day, but at least you can really keep up with it. The big man who came to the Prophet, it's two big men. One, he said to the Prophet, Messenger, who is the most or the best in terms of ibadah? Messenger of Allah said, the one who's got a long lifespan and a long record of good deeds. Who is the most evil of people, Messenger of Allah? Is it the one who's got long lifespan with a long record of evil deeds? Second people might say, Messenger of Allah, Islam comes with lots of instructions. Too much for me to cope. Can you just tell me of something that could hold on to it? Something easy. There's too many things, you know. He's a big good man, he's straightforward. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا يزال لسانك رطبا بذكر الله. That your tongue is kept fresh with the remembrance of Allah. So if that is the case, then you'll be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that will summon and all, it will accommodate for all the ibadah that you do. Keep it fresh tongue. And when you keep the tongue fresh with the remembrance of Allah, and you keep it as well fresh, not to be made filthy with the ghibah and the slandering and all that. You see, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he says, if by the one in whose hand is my soul, if there is anything on the earth that should be locked up forever, it's the tongue. If there is anything on the earth that should be in prison, lock it up, in prison, put in the prison, it's the tongue. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu says, هَذَا الَّذِي أَوْرَدَنِي الْمَوَارِدِ. This is the one that got me trouble. This is the one that got me what? It's the tongue. We have Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu. When he was about to die, his son Abdullah ibn Amr, the well-known Abid, worshipper, he was next to his father. So his father cried. I said, oh, my father, you scared of death? He said, no, I'm not scared of death. I'm scared of what is after death. For verily, I had in my life 3 phases. Phase number 1, I didn't when I was a kafir, an idol worshipper. If I died like this, I would have been sent to the hellfire. Second phase, I was the Prophet of Allah. And the Prophet of Allah used to say, that is, Aslam al-Nas wa amana Amr. People embrace Islam and Amr meet Imam. Upon rain. And I was the Prophet of Allah, he was telling us about Jannah and so called. If I died, people would have said, Hari and Amr al-Asim. Hooray for Amr al-Asim, that he died upon me and he's in Jannah. But now I'm in the 3rd phase. It is after the Prophet's death. I don't know what I have indulged into, what I have said, what I have done, because he was a leader. He was a leader in Egypt. He was a leader in a number of times. He was a leader as a mayor, as a chief. And when you have this, you have with it the package of sinning and making mistakes. So in this phase, if I die, I don't know what I'm going to be. That's why he was crying. So this person should know that this tongue, be careful. Don't let it just go loose like that. And don't be just hesitant to lock it up. Every time you're about to say something, oh, I'm gone. Is it good or bad? Lock it up. Because you don't know. One word can dip you to the hellfire for 70. One word. So how about 2 words? About 3 words. How about the whole day of this life of this person? How about the whole life of this person? All of it? Bad words. How many years and how many thousand millions of years has been put in the hellfire now? Just one word. So I need to make sure that I'm taking this matter seriously. And I know that I'm going to say that inshallah, please Allah Azza wa Jalla, of course you're going to make mistakes. And that is where repentance is. The door of repentance is open for you, inshallah. Right, let's go to the salah in the Safina ship. That's the salah in the ship that we have left it the last time. I have said the last time that the Imam is in the head, yes? The gesture in the head with the ruku and the sujood. Yes? It's not to do like this with the sujood. Okay, fine. Nice.
Page 5. Today is the 8th lesson, 6th of Shawwal, 1437 and 11th July 2016. Prayer on a ship. He sallallahu alayhi wasallam was asked about prayer on a ship, so he said, pray on it standing unless you are afraid of drowning.
Do you have any footnotes, please?
Bazzar 68, Daraqutni, Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi in his Sunan, page 82, volume 2, and Hakim declared it Sahih and Dhahabi agreed.
No other notes? Right, okay. Salatu fi Safina. First of all, ship. The ship at that time was a small one. So the person who stands up, the water moves it around. So he might be falling into the water and drowning. So to make sure that he's not going to be drowning, he was up praying, sitting down. Of course, that ship at the time was profitable. The ships these days are more solid than this Masjid. And we're not joking because you've got cars that goes into it. You can't put a car there, can you? Collateral. But you put there not just cars, trucks and everything, lorries. And they can move, mashallah. So there's nothing to worry about these days. So you can't just use this and say, oh, I'm praising it down my favour because a profitable item, no problem. Pray there because, in case you get drowned. You can't use it. Unless you're struggling in a little boat. That boat's, wobble and you have to do your favour, there's no problem. Remember, when you were on top of the camel, or the top of the animal, okay, then when it comes to the fariḍah, you have to what? Step down, dismount. You could pray your nafila on top of it. But when you want to pray your fariḍah, dismount. But we said, in case of emergency, like for example, there's mud, all of it, and water, and your camel is on top of it, and you want to pray on top of it, top of the camel, definitely pray what? Sit down, unless you're acrobatic, mashallah. You could have balance like that on top of a hump of a camel, which is impossible. But the balance on the camel is different from the balance on the ship. The ship is easy, could get a balance. So you need to know that you only could pray sitting down in the fariḍah when it is real fear of drowning, not just to say that it is. So there's a real fear of drowning, not just basically I'm going to pray in the ship, even if it's a small boat. So if you think that the boat, you can see no problem, settling boat, because these boats these days, mashallah, need to have safety in it. But maybe you've got in a wavy sort of sea or ocean, that's the case. But it is not like the camel. The camel, when we said you could pray sitting down because of the mud, because it's impossible for a person, as I said, to stand up on the camel and pray while he's standing up, so you could pray sitting down even in fariḍah, because he can't dismount. Same thing with the plane. We said the plane, when you're on the plane, is solid, but it is maybe very hard to get a place to where you could stand up. So if you couldn't really get a place in the kitchen or the back, to pray obligatory, then I would say, pray in the seat. Now you can't stand up in the seat. You're going to get everybody on time. What is this person? Stand up on the seat. You understand? Well, even if you can't stand up, you haven't got enough, unless you're a midget, enough space on the top to stand up in the seat. So it is not really good, plus it's not going to be having enough space. Now to stand up between the seats, you haven't got space to make ruku or sujood. Do you understand me? So you don't have anything. So I would say you're allowed to pray sitting down, and I have seen the scholars, probably Sheikh Al-Halimi, Sheikh Mashhour, and all of that, they prayed what? Sitting down. Because it was not possible for them to go and get a place. He told them to come in. But some of the planes, like Saudi Arabian planes or Indian planes, they'll give you a space, even not for you, for 2 or 3 people to make jama'ah. And even the stewards, they'll come with you and pray with you as well. So no problem about that. So coming back to this praying the ship, so don't you take this as a concession to praying sitting down, unless that ship you have a fear of drowning, otherwise it's not allowed. And this is what Sheikh, also what the Imam Shawkani had said, and also the Imam Ahmad also had said in his answers to some of the questions. He said, if the person he had prayed sitting down in the ship, then I would like him to go and repeat the prayer, because it is not really that fear of drowning. But Prophet said, if you fear the drowning, the time of the Prophet, the ships are not the same as the time of Imam Ahmad. 200 years after. So the ships are advancing. Okay, so remember that. Right, now we're going to the issue of supporting.
When he sallallahu alaihi wasallam grew old, he took his support at his place of prayer to lean on.
Right, can you just tell me if any footnotes for that?
Just the reference of Abu Dawud and Hakim.
So when the Prophet ﷺ got old, he got old and he was weak. You could get old when you're agile, mashallah, you don't need a stick. He used to take a stick in his salah. Which salah? Obligatory order. Because if it's voluntary, you can what? You can sit down. It's the obligatory. And the obligatory, what is the permissibility of it? Can I just take a stick to sit with any stick? No, it has to be a stick that I'm feeling not stable to stand up. But I could stand up. And this is because this person is not sure, am I really going to get the full reward or going to get half of the reward? So if you put the stick in the obligatory prayer, it has to be for a genuine reason. Whereas, if it is for voluntary, it's no problem. So even if you don't need a stick, you had a stick because of, in case, like the companions, they used to stay up all night, praying behind the Imams, if you remember, until almost the Fajr, praying the Taraweeh prayer. وَكَانُوا يَعْتَمِدُونَ عَلَى الْعِصِيِّ مِنْ طُولِ الْقِيَامِ. They used to depend upon the stick because of the long prostration, or recitation. They want to have the full reward. So the recitation there, Baqarah, it is being recited in the 8th rak'ah. They said, MashaAllah, the Imam made takhfif. The Imam, MashaAllah, made takhfif salah, light salah. And this is what Ibn al-Araj had said. إذا قرأ الإمام فقرأ في 8 ركعات قلنا بتخفف. ما شاء الله, خفيفة. So Baqarah, I'm sure you need more than a stick if you're finished. Just for praying that prayer, okay? I know that if the Imam recited one juz, the people start, too much for us, okay? Even if he is Mishal al-Fasi, okay? But still people that really, it's very happy because there's a number of issues. Number one, we haven't been trained. Number two, our Iman is not comparable with the Iman of the Sahaba. It's impossible to have that. Yes, so now we've been trained, that is number two. And number three, the life issues. So many things. We can't afford to have a long prayer these days where I've got this and I've got that, I've got gas meters, I've got motor meters, I've got lots of things. Life is too much. It's not really simple before. Lots of things. You have luxury, and luxury comes with its expenses, with its taxation. The luxury comes with tax. Yeah, the taxes to pay. You believe me? If you, for example, live like these poor people for example, in these tents, they don't worry about making sure the mirror is clean and hoovering and all of that. Simple. They just do that. Come back, sleep, wake up. There's nothing like that, go buy spray and fresheners, because it's open door, mashallah, tents. See what I mean? As I said to you, the luxury and life comes with expenses. Electricity comes with expenses. So if you have no electricity, nothing, you just sleep as early as at 9 o'clock you kick class to sleep because it's getting dark. Can't really go on. Unless you have to do the Isha prayer. So I'm just saying, the electricity is the one that makes you awake. Electricity and all the luxury of the TV and all of that. People don't sleep until very, very late, and that's why they miss. And that's why they get as well unhealthy body. Very unhealthy body. This body is now responding to lots of things. And it's been exposed to lots of harms from the SARS, from the, all of this, frequencies and all of that. It's affecting our body. That's why we have lots of cancers. And the cancer is because the cells are not manufactured, is not really functioning properly. There are lots of things being added to the food as well. It makes it as well presentable, nice colours, but it's actually as well, it comes with expenses. So coming back, the Prophet ﷺ used to depend upon the stick that he used to be held in the obligatory prayer. But if the person he has no need for the stick, then his prayer is not really right. Because you have to stand up without the stick. Before you do the stick, because you're not really going to be stable. If you stand up on your feet, but you can't be stable, you might go to one side. Okay? And that is why the hadith of Allah ibn Mas'ud, when it's in Imam Muslim, that he said, we used to find, we used to see that even the person ill used to come to the masjid. فَيُهَادَى بَيْنَ الرَّجُلَيْنِ. He will be put between the two men. And because there is no kalam between the prayer person and the person whose name on this, it's feet to feet, shoulder to shoulder, and that is shoulder to shoulder, then this person will find himself like a stick from here and a stick from there. Two sticks supporting him. So even though he's not capable of standing, but mashallah, got two shoulders. But when you have a mile here and a mile there, this person could go this way or that way. And he thinks, but no, the prayers, body and hearts, everything stuck together. That's the prayer of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's companions. Right. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam also he became more meaty. We know that when he got older, he became more meaty. How did we get that? From different hadiths, but the one that you know, which is hadith Aisha radiallahu anha, as well, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at the beginning, when he raised her, well actually the other way around, when he raised her at the beginning, he lost the race because she was what? Agile. But later on, she put the meat. More than the Prophet ﷺ. He raised her, but it's not when he got really, really old. He started now what? He had won the race. Why? Because she got meaty. But we know from the hadith of Wabisa, he said to us that the Prophet ﷺ, when he got meaty, like this, and he got old, then he had to depend upon what? A stick. So the stick is for something that the person, for example, he finds a pain, he stands up on this side, so he just wants to support himself. So that it is not really, so he could just sit down. If he can't really stand up, he could what? Totally sit down. Right. Go ahead.
Sitting and standing in the night prayer, tahajjud. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to pray long through the night standing and long through the night sitting. And if he recited standing, he would bow standing. And if he recited sitting, he would bow sitting.
Right. This is Aisha radiallahu anha wa ardaha. You finished all of that underneath it? Go and finish it.
And sometimes he sallallahu alaihi wasallam would pray sitting. So he would recite sitting until about 30 or 40 verses of his recitation were left. And he would then stand up to recite these standing and then bow and prostrate. And he would do likewise in the second rak'ah. And in fact, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed a subh, the sitting down, he prayed sitting down towards the end of his life when he had grown old, and that was a year before his death.
Finished?
Also he would
You haven't finished.
also he would sit cross-legged.
Right, so in this actually the words that he had recited, number of things. That's number one, we should say that the Prophet ﷺ used to pray the night prayer, a long prayer, and he used to pray it standing up. And one of these prayers that we know, which is the prayer with Hudayfa ibn Imam and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, where they don't even describe his prayer, that he's probably recited فَقَرَى النِّسَانَ لِعِمْرَانِ one rak'ah, standing up. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said, I almost did something bad. He said, what? Left the Prophet of Allah standing, and what? I would sit. Why is it something bad? Because Abdullah ibn Mas'ud is saying that if the Prophet of Allah had his sins fasted, if he'd been forgiven, yet he stands up, and me, or having got the promise for regarding at least the future. Maybe the past year, but not the future. How can I guarantee my paradise? And then I will sit. So they will not let themselves or allow themselves to make the Prophet stands up and they sit, even though sitting down behind the Imam, it is what? Allowed and permissible. But they will not do it. He would rather have this pain, and that is why, therefore, with the Imam, when he prayed that prayer, with the Prophet ﷺ, and the Messenger of Allah was speaking to him about that prayer, he said, Messenger of Allah, Inni la ajidu dhalika fillah. I'm feeling still the pain in my back. So he said to him, the Prophet of Allah, why don't you tell me? So why don't you tell me? That means, tell me that is number one, that is, if you told me I could have made it what? Shorter. Could have really made it ruku' shorter. Why don't you tell me? There was no answer there. But we could really give the answer, expectation. Well, why don't you tell me? Well, how can you tell him, first of all? How do you tell him? You have to sit down to tell him, and he will not dare to sit down to tell him. He will not dare to sit down and leave the Prophet of Allah standing. No way. He will stand up and have the pain in the back. Okay? But I don't think Hudayfa bin Yaman repeated any prayer after that. Because only one hadith and one prayer. And the Prophet was sent. That's once. He didn't do it again. Alas. Because he was keep telling himself and how many, because nobody can do that. And that is why Aisha, radiallahu anha, who is higher rank than Hudayfa bin Yaman, she doesn't pray along with the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And she used to say to the Prophet of Allah, when he used to pray until his feet are swollen. Feet are swollen. حتى تتفطر قدماه. Messenger of Allah taking it easy on himself. I mean, she doesn't pray with him. Take it easy on yourself. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive for you the past and the future sin. Yes, O Aisha, or should I be grateful to Allah? No one can do that with prophets. The prophets, not the prophet, prophets. Oh, the prophets. Prophets are prophets. The human being, but they are chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with this, edge of ibadah. And that is why they have more ibadah and double calamity on top of that. You expect that more ibadah, more money. You have more hardship, you have more resources. No. You have more ibadah and more calamity, more trials. Like Ayyub alayhi salam. SubhanAllah. 18 years of illness. Right? So you find that more agonizing and also more tests. So, if you had a choice, just look at this before you become prophet. I don't want to be prophet. Because you look at it, it has to be chosen. That's why Allah looked into the hearts and He chose Muhammad. He did not choose Hudayfa. He did not choose Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. He chose the Prophet of Allah to be the whole of the message. So the prophets are the prophets. So, and A'bad al-Nas is Dawood alayhi salam. The one who used to fast the day, break the following day. Because he was a short lifespan. Right, coming back to the second point. So he says here, he used to pray as well, sitting down. Now he's putting sitting down here, okay, is it due to because he's old, or is it because of that he wants to sit down? That's another issue. Okay? No. We could find in the prayer of the Nafilah that the Prophet used to sit down even though he's capable of what? Standing up. So here, long prayers of sitting down, it means as well in the time where he's able to stand up. And that's a good thing for us. When I pray behind Imam sometimes, after the first one, I sit down deliberately. To teach the people that you could sit down if you want. But the prayers these days are too short to sit down in them. It's too short to sit down with. But some of the prayers I prayed behind Imam, mashallah, is a long prayer, so I sat down deliberately. And I started to implement what I learned from these hadiths, which is that if he recited standing up, he would what? Make ruku' standing up. And if he recited sitting down, he will make ruku' what? Sitting down. So he will not recite sitting down and then he will stand up to make ruku'. And also, he says, that is, وَكَانَ أَحْيَانًا يُصَلِّي جَالِسًا فَيَقْرَأُ وَهُوَ جَالِسٌ. Prophet will start praying sitting down. And then just before he finishes, and about 30 verses left, he will stand up and he will recite what? The rest of what he wanted to recite. And when he does that, how does he make the ruku'? Standing on? Standing. Okay? And you could do the other way around. You start what? Standing. And then what? Sit down. And when you sit down, you want what? Sit down. Now can I do like the following? I stand up and I sat down. And then I wanted to stand up again. And then do my ruku. Now if there is no need, you should not do it, because we don't have that. Stand up and sitting down, stand up and sitting down, stand up and sitting down. That would be like concentration. We don't have a proof for that. But we say that if you needed to do that. For example, if you were starting your prayer sitting down, and then you wanted to do the last bit standing up, you stood up, and then you got pain. You sat down, it's no problem. But to start sitting down, and then we wanted to stand up for the last 4, 3, 4, 5 verses, stood up, and then I'm going to make 4 verses and another verse sitting down. That's not really right in the prayer. So remember, we are in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, if the person behind the Imam, and the Imam said Allahu Akbar, and he stood, he said Allahu Akbar, sitting down. Allahu Akbar. And he knows that Imam was reciting Juz', and he knows where is the page going to finish. So just about before, 5, 6 verses before that, or 5 or 2 verses, we'll do the last verse. He stands up. Okay, he stands up, and he will do that last verse, and make ruku with the Imam. Do you understand now? How much does he get from the prayer? Is it half or full? Do you understand what I'm saying now? He started sitting down. Just before the Imam is finished, he stood up, and he continued whatever left, and then he made ruku and sujood. While he's standing up, or sujood when he's sitting down, not only using ruku while standing up. You get half of the reward or the full reward. Think about that. Think about the other situation. He started standing up. And then, well, he wants to sit down, whether it's because of, a bit tiredness, or just want to sit down. Just before the Imam is finished, he sat down. And he may continue with what? No, sitting down. That's another scenario. Half or not half? For you, inshallah, to think for next week. Not next week, in 2 weeks' time. This is something I want to tell you that next Wednesday there's no class, the following Monday there's no class, the following Wednesday there's no class. Our classes will resume on, please put that date into your memory, that is Monday the 25th. So no classes. I'm traveling tomorrow, inshallah. I'll be back on 21st, so I'll be doing for you the 25th. Is that alright? And that inshallah will be there. As in, you said to me what time? 21, got only 3 minutes. So this is a homework for everybody. Last thing before we finish. He says here, the last thing that is, he used to pray when he was at the end of his life, he used to pray his Fajr prayer, that is sitting down because he was too old, and he was as well weakened because of the illness as well. He used to say, he used to sit and mutarabbi', that is mutarabbi', cross-legged. Cross-legged, now, what is the sunnah of the Prophet said that in terms of the person if he's ill and when he wants to sit down? Now the mutarabbi', it doesn't mean that the Prophet said it's a sunnah mutarabbi'. The basis, the foundation for this is that the asr is if the person could stand up, he wants to sit down on the floor, is to sit down according to what the prayer position is normal, which is what? Iftirash. If you can't do tawarruk, if you can't do cross-legged. And the difference, as I said, because some of the scholars said, no, actually, the sunnah is to cross-legged. No. Here said he is to cross-legged, but it doesn't mean that the cross-legged is a sunnah. Because the sunnah, we sit on the floor to sit on those things that the Prophet usually sits. Iftirash or tawarruk. You know iftirash, or tawarruk in the last rak'ah. But if the person is not comfortable with these two, then you could go what? Cross-legged. So one by step by the other. If you can't sit down at all, then you move back. You know, on your side first, and then after that you move back. The side is the right or the left, it doesn't matter, on your side. Okay. After this, we finish, inshallah, Salatu fi Mi'ad. If you have any question regarding what we have heard, we'll ask. And I'm sorry today, our class will start in that, still at 8 o'clock, alright? Because the Maghrib will not start until 9 o'clock, so we still go full hour. Today, I have arrived earlier than 8 o'clock, but I had to do something important for myself before I travel tomorrow. So I was in Luton actually at 7:30. I had to do something. That is why I'm really sorry about this now. Follow.
How do you advise a person who struggles to make their intention before they do action? We've got so many hadith and fully version about action, so they need to make their intention. They struggle to do it before every intention, so they just do the good action and they seek the pleasure of Allah, and they miss out all the rewards of those better intentions.
How is it for the person who's got lots of things to do, lots of things in his mind which are good to perform, and he wants to do as much as he can, but sometimes if he does one of them, he forgets the rest. You see,
Let's say, for instance, you're going to do an action. That action has 6 or 7 rewards. So you do it for this potential, that potential, this potential, one action. But you haven't got time, you can't really get your head around the intention. So you just do good actions just for the sake of it, rather than with a strong intention.
so it's got 6 rewards. I don't understand the word 6 rewards.
So let's say, for instance, you do 6 actions, and you sit down and make the intention properly, and you get more reward from that action. You can't train your brain to do that, so you just do the good action without thinking about it.
No, it doesn't work like that. The person, if he wants, for example, to pray his 2 rak'ah asr, as he's in travel, and he came to a masjid, and he forgot to have the intention of the salat al masjid, he will not gain that reward until he has that in his mind. But to say that I'm going to pray the 2 rak'ah with a good intention, no, he has to as well have that intention of Tahiyat al-Masjid. And as I said, if you had time to pray the Tahiyat al-Masjid, it would be better to pray Tahiyat al-Masjid. Pray Tahiyat al-Masjid, it's better to pray it rather than to lump it with asking. Now.